Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Well, fighting over the weekend has unraveled the shaky ceasefire in Syria. Druze and Christian civilians have been reportedly massacred at the hands of jihadist militias.
In Judea and Samaria, tensions are rising over accusations that Israeli settlers are attacking Palestinians. And Israelis living in the land say they're facing constant attacks by Arab terrorists. Chuck Holton has the story from Jerusalem.
In Syria's Sweda province, the ceasefire is rapidly deteriorating. Over 1,000 civilians have been killed, mostly Druze, but also Christians. Among the dead, Pastor Khaled Mazer of the Good Shepherd Evangelical Church, murdered along with his entire extended family by pro-regime jihadist militias in Sweda. The atrocity has mobilized outrage across Israel's 150,000-strong Druze community, many of whom are demanding action.
I can't stay still watching my relatives, my people being slaughtered without doing anything. I know I don't have military experience, but at least I would do what the minimum I can do to help my people.
Israel has responded with emergency medical aid, and they've also continued sporadic airstrikes in defense of the beleaguered Druze in Sweda. But Muslim countries like Turkey are condemning Israel's involvement.
I want to say this once again, clearly and plainly. Israel is a lawless, ruleless, unprincipled, spoiled, indulged, and frenzied terrorist state.
In Judea and Samaria, U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee visited the Christian village of Taibe this weekend after fires damaged its ancient church and cemetery. Some say the fires were started by Arabs targeting Israeli farmland, but local leaders continue to blame Jewish settlers.
Solidarity with the people who just want to live their lives in peace, to be able to go to their own land, to be able to go to their place of worship.
Settler leaders argue that accusations of violence are often distorted and that Jewish communities are frequently under siege.
The Jewish communities of Judea and Samaria are victimized constantly, bombarded constantly by Arab terrorism and violence. In response, the level of violence perpetrated by Jews, although it is unfortunately not zero, and it should be, and we're working on getting it to zero, it is so small as to be off the charts. In comparison to the number of people in the population, it's something like 0.056.
Israelis living in Judea and Samaria say many of the reported attacks on Palestinians are simply Jews defending themselves from Palestinian-initiated violence.
By undermining the legitimacy of the Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria, you clear the way for creating a Palestinian state. And you undermine the settlers and connect them in all sorts of ways to the IDF. You essentially tarnish the moral standing of Israel's army.
With the ceasefire in Syria crumbling and competing claims fueling unrest in Judea and Samaria, the Middle East looks to be entering another volatile and unpredictable week. From Jerusalem, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Early in that piece, you saw a Muslim jihadist lifting a sword in the air. That's a symbol, and it's a symbol for jihad. You know, he's saying, we are going to conquer you with the sword. I've said for years, I'll say it again. Muhammad comes with a sword. Jesus comes with a cross. And the difference couldn't be more evident in the news that we're hearing today. What's underlying all of the violence in the Middle East is a jihadist ideology that calls for the elimination of the Jewish state. And in that, whenever you hear someone saying from the river to the sea, they are calling for genocide. They're calling for all the Jews to be slaughtered. There's a long history of this, and it goes all the way back to Khyber. That was another famous battle between Muhammad's army and a Jewish community in Saudi Arabia. This is before he conquered Mecca. He conquered a Jewish community of 10,000 with a force of around 1,400, and he slaughtered them. So that's what we're seeing. And for Israel to say we want to create a demilitarized zone, we're not going to let southern Syria turn into southern Lebanon and be a place for jihadists to launch attacks against us. This new government in Syria, they're trying to put a nice face on it, but they're ISIS, and their ideology goes straight back to that. We need to pay attention to that. This isn't something that's going to be peaceful in the long run. And I applaud what Israel's trying to do in order to secure their own border. In other news, while both Republicans and Democrats are now pushing for the release of the Epstein files, one attorney says they're looking in the wrong place. Well, Ephraim Graham has that story and more from the CBN Newsroom. Ephraim?
Gordon, the Justice Department has asked a federal court to unseal transcripts from the grand jury's Epstein investigation. Meanwhile, President Trump continues to bash those calling for full transparency. He posted, "Nothing will be good enough for the troublemakers and radical left lunatics making the request. It will always be more, more, more." Harvard Law professor emeritus Alan Dershowitz once represented Epstein. He told Fox News Sunday former Epstein associate and girlfriend Ghislaine Maxwell should be compelled to testify before Congress. Maxwell is now in federal prison.
She is the Rosetta Stone. She knows everything. She arranged every single trip with everybody. She knows everything. And if she were just given use immunity, she could be compelled to testify. I'm told that she actually would be willing to testify, and there'd be no reason for her to withhold any information.
House Republicans have laid the groundwork for a vote calling for the release of all the Epstein files within 30 days. The Director of National Intelligence is making strong accusations against former Obama administration officials. Tulsi Gabbard says she has evidence the Obama team manufactured evidence leading to the FBI investigation of President Trump and Russia. She said it's based on a request by President Obama for an intelligence assessment on how Moscow affected the outcome of the 2016 election.
There's no question in my mind that this intelligence community assessment that President Obama ordered be published, which contained a manufactured intelligence document. It's worse than even politicization of intelligence. It was manufactured intelligence that sought to achieve President Obama and his team's objective, which was undermining President Trump's presidency and subverting the will of the American people.
On CBS's Face the Nation, Democrat and the ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee, Congressman Jim Himes, says there's no basis for prosecution.
What you saw from the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, was not just a lie, but a very dangerous lie, because when you start throwing around language like sedition and treason, somebody's going to get hurt.
Gabbard says she is referring the case to the Department of Justice, and she'll be releasing more documents in the coming days. Turning now to the Pentagon, the U.S. military is seeing a major turnaround in recruiting, with all 6 branches of the military meeting or exceeding goals. CBN national security reporter Caitlin Burke brings us the story.
After years of falling short of the target and growing concern over the future, military recruiters are finally seeing a surge, not just in interest, but enlistments.
We've seen momentum unlike we have seen in probably a decade.
This year, the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Space Force all meeting recruiting goals months ahead of time. The Marines and Coast Guard remain on track to hit theirs as well.
Enthusiasm to serve is at all-time highs. Since November 5th, 2024, the U.S. military has seen the highest recruiting percentage of mission achieved in 30 years.
Chief Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell leads a recruitment task force with the mission to continue removing recruiting obstacles and build on current momentum.
How do we set the conditions here culturally in this country to have more kids want to serve the country and see it as a viable career path?
Various factors appear to be responsible for this welcome growth. They range from modernization efforts to consecutive increases in military pay, plus new programs aimed at helping prepare prospective enlistees for service. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth also attributes the turnaround to a change in leadership.
Under the previous administration, they lowered the recruiting goals so they could look like they were filling the ranks, but they actually couldn't even meet the lowered recruiting goals. In this administration, with higher recruiting goals, we're beating them 4 to 5 months ahead of time because the American people want to serve.
Hegseth argues past recruiting struggles resulted from what he calls a weak and woke agenda under the Biden administration. He's pledging a reset, one that puts the warfighter first and returns the military's focus to strength, discipline, and mission readiness. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Washington.
We take you now to the world of professional golf and American Scottie Scheffler's victory at the British Open Sunday. The top-ranked golfer in the world beat the field by 4 shots, going 17 under par at Royal Portrush in Northern Ireland. This is his 4th PGA win and the 3rd leg in a quest for a career Grand Slam. Earlier in the week, Scheffler, who is a Christian, created a stir when he told reporters faith and family are more important to him than winning. He said, quote, "This is not a fulfilling life. It's fulfilling from the sense of accomplishment, but it's not fulfilling from a sense of the deepest places of your heart." Echo that sentiment, indeed.
It is a great sentiment, and Terry and I were just discussing it's amazing that that causes a stir. Why? It shouldn't. We're hearing it now from all of the major sports. You hear it from baseball, you hear it from football, and now to hear the top golfer in the world say it's fun, it's nice, I'm glad I can make a living at this. This is a good way of life, but it doesn't fulfill. And this is so, it just lines up with Scripture. What shall it profit a man if he gain the whole world and lose his own soul? You can achieve a great deal in this world. You can have career, you can have fame, you can have money, you can have all of these things. But listen to the people that have achieved that. They say, well, this really doesn't fulfill me. What fulfills me is a relationship with Jesus Christ, with my Creator. What fulfills me is my family, what I'm instilling in them. That is true fulfillment, and that's what I look forward to at the end of the day. Realize this, and realize it before it's too late. If you want to know Jesus, if you want to meet him, I've got somebody on at the end of a phone call who would be glad to introduce him to you today. You can walk free from the stain of sin and guilt. You can have a fulfilling life. You can have this wonderful promise. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. All these other things will then be added unto you. If you want to pray that prayer, call us. 1-800-700-7000.